If I have to think about what got me to where I am now and, looking back and thinking what I wish I knew then when I was really in the worst of it. So, if you've watched my About Me, you probably know a little bit about what this physical body has been through and all the experiments and health journeys I've been on trying to figure out chronic disease and sort of working my way through the medical system and what that even looks like to be so chronically ill for so long, where you sort of lose sight of what it means to be living a human life when it just comes to the idea of surviving and managing and getting through each day, and really losing that connection to what does inspire hope and what is worth living for when your body doesn't work the way you thought it would, or your life looks nothing like it thought it would. So, the intention of this video is to really go back to the idea of what I wish I knew then and what really started to move the needle when nothing was working, when all of the treatments were failing and doctors could not give me answers. I kept hearing, "You are the most complicated case we've ever had," and almost sent home like, "Well, we don't know what to do with you." So it really took a brain shift when it felt like nothing was working and I wasn't making progress and my body was just further stepping into that state of decline. Finally taking a shift to realize, whoa, what if there is some purpose in this suffering? What if this disease, this sickness, this dysfunction, what if this is here to teach me? And when I started to really let that idea envelop my cells and really play around with the idea of what if this is exactly what I need to experience right now, and perhaps this would lead me down roads that I never would have expected, that my life could look even more beautiful than I expected when I sort of let go of this idea of how it should look. That's when the fight stopped. I'm not saying my symptoms went away right away or that it all of a sudden got easier. Not the case. I was still struggling to perform basic human acts. When when something as simple as your digestive system is not moving, that's a pretty big catch-22 right there. But when I stopped the fight of trying to fix, of trying to figure out, of trying to, get the next injection, the next treatment, all of a sudden, if there's nothing to fix, then what's left? It allowed me to enter that first stage of that peaceful kind of surrender where all of a sudden I could sort of take a step back. And that's when I stopped. I stopped the IV injections. I stopped all of the treatments. I basically allowed myself to step into a state where I did not know what was going to happen. And yes, I was scared, but I was in this state of, okay, all right, this is a very interesting experience. And that shift from, oh, I'm dying, to, okay, interesting. What is the teaching here? When I could step into that state of no longer fighting, the stress response started to lower. And that's when things can start to heal. The body, even when it's given everything it needs, if we're in that constant trying to fix and to figure out and to detect and to diagnose and to, the cells don't really like that, They've got their own plan, and this might sound a little woo-woo or a little spiritual, but I think there is something to be said that when it feels like nothing is working, that's probably because the brain is not really picking up the bigger message that's there. So it's really allowing yourself to shift into that perspective of seeing the greater purpose. What if this is exactly what you need to experience right now? What is that? What's below all of this suffering? And thinking about a wound, a gaping open wound. That's not necessarily something that we're going to force to heal. We give it what it needs. We relax. We rest. We dress the wound, maybe with some sugar and honey, to let it do what it needs to do. And our job is to slow down and sort of get out of its way. So that acceptance shift I think was one of the most important things. And in that kind of slower, more reflective, a little bit more feminine, kind of restful state, I finally started to get the wisdom and be able to get in touch with my intuition to lead me to the next steps, which, as many of you know, led me to the carnivore diet, which was life-saving as a kind of band-aid approach for where I was at with all of my chronic conditions. So really it was thinking beyond the brain. And there's this wonderful story about, it's called The Two Wolves. And the legend is, the origin is sort of unknown. I have no idea where it first came up, but I remember hearing the idea of these two wolves, fighting over a man's heart. And one wolf is of despair and darkness, and the other wolf is all about light and hope. And, in the story they ask, which wolf wins? And the response is, the wolf you feed. And I know that, again, that simplifies things, but really, there is always going to be negativity. The ego is always going to try and find its way in and tell you, this shouldn't be this way. What's wrong with you? How dare you be this way? Why can't you be like everyone else? Why can't you get better? Why can't you heal faster? And then there's that other voice, that kind of gentle, wise voice that's saying, there. There's something behind this. So when we think about healing, stepping into that state, we have to get out of our way. We have to get out of our own way. And, it's difficult because healing takes energy. You need a certain amount of metabolic energy to actually heal on, the very basic cellular level. So yes, there is something to be said that when you're in such a depleted and toxic state, you're in a catch-22. And the first way out is to release this idea of control and having to fix. Really letting yourself rest in that state of maybe even acknowledging that your body is far sicker than you had planned. And that's okay. These symptoms, these diseases, these disorders, these diagnoses, they don't just happen overnight. These go generations back. So we can't expect to fix it, and engage that stress response in order to heal, when we need to release the stress that got us sick in the first place. And there are many ways to do that, but this huge shift towards, what is the lesson behind this? What can I learn? And really choosing to listen to that wiser, kind of gentle voice that is not there to hurt you. It's almost like if you were to settle all of the noise and quiet all of the chaos in the background, that wise voice is there, and it takes maybe just a little bit of more listening to let that voice bubble up to the surface. And I think, if you're in that state where it feels like you're losing all hope, nothing is working, you're in the mud, you maybe are feeling really depressed and hopeless, you are right in the perfect place. You are so ripe to finally start molding your experience in ways that can support your healing. And really seeing it as an opportunity. Sickness can be one of the most amazing teachers because it gets straight to the point. When your body doesn't have the energy to do basic acts, suddenly life clarifies itself. Suddenly you know what's important. For me, it was really learning the ability to take nothing for granted. Taking nothing for granted. And when everything was stripped away, I realized how important my relationships were and how important each and every present moment was. Just really coming back to some of the most basic delights in life, even if it was just looking out my window and seeing a crow fly by and letting that just absorb my entire focus and letting that be so beautiful that all of a sudden I wasn't even aware of my symptoms anymore. And just those micro moments of rest that gives the system a chance to recharge. It's not about eating, following another perfect diet or trying the next protocol. It's letting that stress that we've accumulated discharge naturally when we get the brain out of the way. And, a friend asked me, this question has stuck with me because of how it landed, but she asked me, if I weren't sick, if I had no limitations, what would I be doing? How would I be spending my time? And that sort of woke me up too, because I realized, oh my gosh, I had maybe I had stopped thinking beyond my symptoms. And then, of course, how could I expect my brain and my body to shift into that state of health if I wasn't even imagining it? I wasn't giving it the framework or the blueprint to do anything else because I was so stuck in this cage, this prison of what felt like dying. So I want to ask you, if you had no limitations, if you were finally healed, if these symptoms went away, if your autoimmune disease went away, if your Lyme disease went away, if your mold toxicity all of a sudden just evaporated from your system, what would you do? And then following from that, how can you start to do that now? How can you start to think and act and move in ways to bring that into your present moment now? Because your life is now. Your life really is in this moment. You might think that, oh, when you're healed, when you get this, then you can start living. But, you might get exactly what you want. You might get the dream body, the dream job, move to that beautiful house in the redwoods or, around Lake Tahoe. And then all of a sudden, you realize you missed out on your entire life hoping for this goal in the future to bring you that happiness, and forgetting to experience your life, in the misery, in the mud, with all of these symptoms. There's something to it. If we can start to live in ways that really let us find that kind of beauty with whatever we're experiencing, and Pema Chodron talks about this, settling into the discomfort, that's when you're finally in this state of, whoa. You realize that health is so much less about these symptoms and the chaos of what might be wrong with you, and all of a sudden it's more of a mindset. And as soon as you drop into that, the cells know. They can feel it. You can feel it. And just thinking of any state where you've been so relaxed, maybe it's a rare feeling for you these days, but you have little micro moments where you can feel it. That's what I'm talking about. How can we step into that state more often, regardless of our circumstances? There's fires outside right now. There is a political system that is completely chaotic and so overwhelming and stressful for many reasons that I will not go into. Our world seems like it's maybe the most unstable it's ever been. Yet, we can find some kind of stability in this madness. And that is, maybe one of the most important missions, I think, is finding what that purpose is. What can you learn from this? And how can we start taking little steps, even if it's just in the way we think, in that perspective we're choosing, to feel what it feels like to be healthy and whole now. Just to close, your life is right now as you watch this video, as you listen, whatever you're doing. What can you focus on that is so beautiful that can almost distract you from all this future thinking, or thinking about the past of what you should have done differently, or just hyper focusing on your symptoms, or the idea that when things are better, then you can start living? I'm here to tell you that is false. You can start living right now, even with whatever is going on. Your life has little nuggets of beauty, and it could be something so simple. And that pain might still be there, yes, but can we master the art of holding them both at once? And if I could go back and tell myself this when I was at my lowest, when I was so ready to give up every single second, I could barely even eat any foods without having the craziest flu-like reactions, and then just, spending the rest of the day in this kind of toxic flu-like state. It felt like there was nothing in life that felt joyful. I did not want to keep fighting. But as soon as I stopped fighting and said, okay, I'm going to be the best sick person I can possibly be right now. I'm going to get cozy in my pajamas. I'm going to start focusing on those little nuggets of goodness. All of a sudden, things started shifting. So I invite you to see what you can start to focus on today, to start living your life now, no matter what it looks like, and seeing what that opens up for you. Let me know.